5.
Curry hits a three.
4.
Houston with a drive. Deep left field.
3.
Patrick hit by Watt. Sack number 10.
2.
Messi with a record-breaking goal.
1.
Welcome to BSS Sports. Now, here are your hosts, Steve and Trevor.
Good afternoon. Welcome to another edition of BSS Sports. My name is Steven Schill with the ever lovely Trevor, Struthers, and the good old Kevin Durant, the one that OKC fans aren't a huge fan of, makes his return with the Warriors, and obviously the Warriors won that game. I mean, I still think there's a heck of a lot of displeasure with Kevin Durant, but Russell Westbrook is still doing mighty fine on his own. Right now he's leading the league with 31 points a game. That's a whole whopping 2 more than Isaiah Thomas. And it's weird to think, to an extent, that Russell Westbrook is still as dominant without Kevin Durant. Or do you think there was always this presence that Russell Westbrook was always going to be kind of the guy that's going to step up no matter what?
Well, this is the argument that you could have made for Durant leaving, why this would be a good thing for Westbrook, because obviously it means he's going to have the ball a lot more and be able to create a lot more offensively, and that's exactly what he's done with all these triple-doubles that seem to be just, coming out of his ears now at this point. So, I mean, that was like the one plus side of Durant going elsewhere, is the fact that Westbrook's going to have the ball all the time, and the downside, obviously, is the competitive part of the team kind of goes away, because all of a sudden you're relying on just the one guy on the floor a lot more.
Well, they were talking about how Durant kind of handled the entire situation wrong, and not to go back on this too much, but it's a prominent thing, because in sports these days, I mean, you have the LeBron James incidents, and it seems that everything that's super negative is coming out of the NBA, except for the commissioner, of all things. But when Durant got his MVP speech, he was saying, "Oh, thanks, Russell, for, being my bro, having my back, teaching me all these things. You pushed me," type of deal. But when this went down, they were saying that he didn't talk to his agent or anything. And do you think that OKC is ever going to honor what Kevin Durant did in OKC?
Eventually, I think you have to. And anytime somebody wins an MVP award is the best on not only regarded as the best on the team at that time, but the best in the league at that time. I mean, definitely, we're going to get to a point in time where that'll happen. Same thing with Vince Carter in Toronto. Is eventually those wounds will be healed. It may take 10 years, it may take 20 years, it may take 50 years, but at some point in time in Kevin Durant's lifetime, he will be honored for what he did with the OKC Thunder.
So started out talking about how Russell Westbrook was leading the NBA in points per game. Kevin Durant's also on the top 10 list, as well as DeMar DeRozan. Right now he's 4th of the Toronto Raptors with 27.9, so 28 points a game. But the Raptors losing to the Pistons, and it just seems that the Raptors don't have the motivation. I don't know if it's what it is this year or the following. I mean, the games are still sold out, but the team has a different vibe this year. What's your thoughts on the Raptors thus far?
I don't know if they'd be lacking motivation. I think maybe that could be the argument you could make if they struggled in years past. But, I mean, it's not like they don't have competition in their own division, because now they do. Now they have the Boston Celtics that they have to try to battle with for that top seed in the division. And, I mean, obviously, yeah, they're struggling right now, and a lot of it has to be they're relying a lot on DeMar DeRozan, and obviously he's played well this year, but, I mean, you can only rely on that guy so much. I mean, it kind of goes back to what we were saying with OKC and Russell Westbrook. Like, I mean, he can go out there and still have a fantastic season, but it's still just mainly one guy that's producing, one guy you're expecting to produce, and it's not going to be enough to produce victories. Kyle Lowry is a guy that's had a very up and down season at times, and around that, the Raptors, apart from those two, have been very inconsistent, and so that's something that needs to kind of mend out as the season goes on. Maybe maybe Powell should be getting more playing time as well. I mean, that's a guy there that obviously there's a lot of skill and a lot of potential in what Powell can do for the Raptors. And maybe that's the kind of change up that Dwayne Casey needs to throw to get this team back on the right track.
So, talking about the Raptors, they're still second in the Atlantic Division with Boston in the lead, and then New York Knicks, Philadelphia 76ers, and the Nets behind them. But it's weird because there's a very, very big gap in the Atlantic Division. We have Boston and Toronto, both with over 30 wins, and then under them, we have New York with 23, Philadelphia with 20, and then Brooklyn hasn't even hit 10, but we're not really going to talk about Brooklyn. But there's going to be a huge landslide if New York even wants to catch up. Do you think the Knicks are... Where are the Knicks? Is this a rebuild year, or what is this attempt with Joakim Noah and Derrick Rose? Is this a last straw at something? Because, I mean, we keep on talking about the Carmelo thing, but the way that New York went into this season, everybody had hope, but they haven't really lived up to expectations.
Well, the whole situation with the New York Knicks just seems to be a bigger mess after a bigger mess. I mean, now we have this Oakley thing now that everybody's talking about, and you got the biggest celebrity fan of the Knicks that goes to games wearing the Oakley jersey. He's been banned from MSG, so it's like this their own little standoff with the whole situation, and it's really ugly. And I mean, you mentioned where they rank in the division with wins. I mean, it just goes to show you just how bad the division overall is, with how big of a gap that there is. And I mean, now the Raptors actually have some competition for that top spot in the division, so it is a little surprising that they do seem, to some people, including yourself, like they're playing unmotivated.
Now, wanting to switch over to baseball for a moment, because the pitchers and the catchers are reporting for spring training duty very shortly. Obviously, the Blue Jays did fantastic last year. Generally speaking, the core is coming back. If you don't know, Jose Bautista, he's a Blue Jay. Again, welcome to the grand old joy of being a Blue Jay fan, of winning. At least that's what we're hoping this year. Edwin's gone. I don't even know how to word it. What's the outlook for fans going into the season for the Blue Jays? The past couple of years, it's been, okay, we're winning it all. This is a powerhouse team, and we've generally lived up to expectations, but I feel ever since this whole Edwin and Jose thing went down, the mood's changed.
Obviously, they lost Edwin Encarnacion, and that's the big, guy that they've dropped going into this year, the big fan favorite. But, I mean, if you want some positive to take out of this from the majority of the fans' perspective, I mean, the way you look at it, what were the other two big losses that come to my mind instantly anyways? They were R.A. Dickey and Brett Cecil. I mean, fans hated those guys, it seems like, a lot of the time anyways. So, I mean, obviously Brett Cecil is a big loss in terms of just having a left-handed pitcher that can actually pitch in relief for the Blue Jays. But bringing in J.P. Howell, hopefully that ends up working out well for the Blue Jays. I mean, that's what they're hoping for. Picking up Jared Saltalamacchia was a really interesting move on a minor league deal to see if he still has anything left. And I mean, he's a guy that's been known to be able to hit. So if he can hit in the AL East. So that's something there as well. A lot of this main core is back. Jose Bautista will be back. Obviously, Josh Donaldson, Troy Tulowitzki are still there. A lot of those key offensive cogs, minus Edwin, are still there and in place. Kendrys Morales can have a fantastic year. Who knows what we're going to see from Steve Pearce, but, I mean, he found ways to hit in Baltimore. He's back in that division right now, or he was in Tampa, too, and he was hitting down there, so he loves this division. So you have those factors as well going into this, and, I mean, that pitching staff is relatively, rotation-wise, it's untouched, and it'll be interesting to see what we see from the young guys like Sanchez, like Stroman, but there's a lot of potential there. The only real big hit to that rotation, whether you liked him or not, R.A. Dickey, those guaranteed 200 innings are gone. And like I said, you have those young guys like Sanchez and Stroman. You're going to have to rely on those guys, and at some point, you're going to have to rely on them to throw a couple hundred innings. Obviously, there was a lot of debate over the whole Sanchez thing at towards the end of last year when his innings count was getting up there. And so that right there, I mean, maybe now you're past that and he can pitch those 200 innings. Stroman, I mean, it wasn't that long ago that he was obviously injured. It wasn't an arm thing, but I mean, now he's another guy you want to see try to go those 200 innings. You want to try to push that. You want to try to get that. And obviously guys like Marco Estrada, with him being back, that's obviously going to be a key cog because he is a veteran guy that you don't have to worry about trying to build up that mileage because it's technically already there, and he's been a guy that's been fantastic for them to rely on. So they have those key cogs all right there in front of you. Really, the only guy missing is Edwin Encarnacion. And so in my opinion, this is still a team that's going to be in the playoff race, but I mean, who knows? We're not even into March yet, and there could be a lot of things happening between now and even the middle of the season and what ends up playing out for the Blue Jays.
So the Cleveland Browns, they get Edwin Encarnacion, but
The Indians, not the Browns. The
Sorry,
Browns maybe
my
could
bad,
use
my
them.
bad.
The Browns
Fair-
are that
fair
bad
enough.
that maybe Edwin would help them, but yeah.
So the Indians get Edwin Encarnacion, but there's no guarantee that they're going to go back to the World Series final. Which team is more likely to go back to the World Series? Is it the Cubs or is it the Indians?
I think it's the Cubs. Obviously, a lot of people are happy with Joe Madden and how he manages. He'll obviously be back. But, I mean, just looking at the team as a whole, I mean, sure, Cleveland added Encarnacion. They lost Mike Napoli. He's going back to Texas. So there's a bat there that they've lost. And so there are some question marks with the Indians as a whole. But with the Cubs, they lose out in Aroldis Chapman obviously coming back. They didn't really have much interest in bringing him back. But, I mean, you look at that team overall, especially offensively, that's a very young and exciting team that has the potential to be very good for many years. And pitching-wise, I mean, they're going to have John Lester back. Jake Arrieta obviously has emerged in Chicago as one of the best pitchers in the game. So those are a couple of guys in the rotation they're going to key on. They have that young lineup. That young lineup can hit. Bryant obviously is a star. Rizzo is obviously a star. I mean, there's a lot of potential with this Cubs team. And in my opinion, they're the most likely to be a team that will probably win their division and could very, very easily, once they get to the playoffs, find a way back into the World Series.
So switching back to the NFL just for a moment, because we witnessed probably, well, it was voted on, and a lot of people thought that it was the greatest game, Super Bowl-wise, in NFL history. Again, you got to take that with a grain of salt because obviously it's the most fresh in our mind, and some people weren't alive to see the other 51 Super Bowl or 50 Super Bowls that happened prior to. But one of the traditions for the winning teams of the major sporting organizations is to take a visit to the White House. And obviously with the Patriots winning, they are going off to meet Mr. Donald Trump. But so far there are 6 Patriots players who are saying they are skipping out on that. That being Martellus Bennett, LeGarrette Blount, Alan Branch, Dante Hightower, Chris Long, and Devin McCourty. Trevor, do you think there's any point in skipping this? Does it say a whole lot? What's your take on the whole skipping the White House visit?
I mean, it's really the best way, I suppose, for an athlete to make a political statement. Because in a way, I mean, with obviously what we've heard, and I mean, they just won the Super Bowl. I mean, they're not making this trip to the White House for some time still. But the fact that they're coming out and saying this, I mean, they're making that political statement, and maybe in the easiest way, they're not. I mean, they're not taking, a knee for the national anthem like Kaepernick. And I mean, and in many ways, media-wise, that seemed to backfire in his face. But for the Patriots here, I mean, this is maybe the easiest way to do it because, I mean, technically, who really cares if you go to be a part of that other than yourself? I mean, it'd be a cool opportunity to do that. But, I mean, obviously, if you don't like the way things have gone government-wise, this is your chance to make that statement. And that's a great way to do it. I mean, obviously, one way to do it as well, looking back, I mean, this sounds very similar. I mean, obviously, it was smaller numbers, but this sounds very similar to what Tim Thomas did. When Boston won the cup, and he didn't want to go because he didn't like the government, I guess, at that time. So he sat that one out, and there was a little bit of discussion about that at the time. But I mean, when you have lots of players doing it, and when you have a franchise like the Patriots, who first of all are very successful, second of all are obviously very popular because of their success, you're gonna have a lot of people talking about this, and it's making an even bigger statement, especially given the fact that they literally just won the Super Bowl, and it's very relevant to be talked about. And I mean, you knew as well. I mean, the reason this is coming out right now is because a lot of people as well are asking these guys, hey, are you gonna do this? This is our president right now. You want to go visit him? You want to go say hi? You want to go celebrate with him? Stuff like that. And if they don't like the way the government's going to be, I mean, they're athletes, but they know how to answer questions honestly sometimes when they're really passionate about stuff like politics, and so they'll give their passionate answer. And in this case, for these guys, it's no.
So Tom Brady's actually a friend of Donald Trump's. They went golfing a while ago, not recently, but a while ago, and he posted on his Instagram a picture of Julian Edelman's catch, the memorable one right near the end of the game, and he quoted the photo with this: "This is why we love sports, right? No dogma, no blind faith, no rules you have to buy into, just attendance. Show up and miracles happen. People of every race, religion, ethnicity, political point of view and lifestyle, share a singular experience for a few hours, and become one. Not sure if that's a little bit of a, point out at some certain individuals, but it'll be interesting to see how the White House visit goes. And that's it for this edition of BSS Sports. Make sure to follow us on Twitter and like us on Facebook, archiving all of our works on YouTube at BSS Productions. For Stephen Schill and Trevor Struthers, we'll catch you next Monday.